It all started so innocently, you see. Just another Tuesday. The kind where the sun felt a little too bright, the coffee a little too bitter, and the hum of the city a little too loud. I was, as always, adrift in the predictable currents of my life. A life I'd begun to feel was less a river and more a stagnant pond. The same commute, the same lunch, the same tired conversations. It was all beige. A beige existence, stretching out before me like an endless, uninspiring canvas. That's when I found it. Tucked away in the attic, amongst cobwebs and forgotten memories, was an old radio. Wooden, heavy, smelling faintly of dust and something else, something indefinable, like dried leaves and distant rain. It was the kind of radio your grandfather might have owned, the kind that hummed with a low, almost imperceptible thrum even when switched off. A relic from a time before sleek digital displays and instant gratification. A time, I imagined, of crackling static and whispered secrets. I'd always been a bit of a tinkerer, a scavenger of forgotten things. So, naturally, I had to try and get it working. The dial was stiff, the knobs reluctant to turn. But with a little patience, a few twists, and a prayer to the forgotten gods of electronics, I coaxed a faint crackle from its aged speaker. Static, mostly. A vast ocean of white noise, punctuated by the occasional pop and hiss. Yet, even in that cacophony, I sensed something different. A faint undercurrent, a subtle tremor in the static that sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't just noise. It felt, watched, listened to, and that unease, that unsettling feeling of being observed, only intensified as the days turned into nights, and the whispers from the radio grew louder. Days bled into nights, filled with the rhythmic hiss and crackle of the old radio. I'd spend hours, sometimes all night, twisting the dial, searching for a clear station. Anything to break the monotony of the static. Mostly, I found only more static, a vast, echoing emptiness that seemed to stretch out into the infinite. But then, one night, something changed. I'd been fiddling with the tuning knob, almost absent-mindedly, when a shift occurred. A subtle change in the frequency, almost imperceptible at first. The static remained, but it was different now. Denser, heavier, and then I heard them. Whispers. Faint, indistinct whispers that seemed to weave their way through the static, like threads of smoke in a darkened room. They were unintelligible, mostly just fragments of sound, fleeting echoes carried on the wind of the radio waves. But there was something about them, a chilling intimacy, a sense of being spoken to directly, even though I couldn't understand a single word. My heart hammered against my ribs. Curiosity warred with a primal, instinctive fear. Was this paranormal, a ghost in the machine, a cosmic joke, or something far more sinister? I tried to rationalize it, to dismiss it as a trick of the ear, a product of my overactive imagination. But the whispers persisted, weaving their way into my dreams, seeping into my waking thoughts, leaving me with a gnawing sense of unease that no amount of logical explanation could ever fully erase. The static hummed, a constant, unsettling backdrop to the whispers, each one a chilling reminder that I was not alone in the silent hours of the night. The radio, once a simple object, had become a conduit, a gateway to something else. Something I wasn't sure I wanted to understand. Night after night I sat glued to the old radio, straining my ears, trying to decipher the whispers. At first, they were just a chaotic jumble of sounds, but gradually, painstakingly, they began to coalesce. Words, fragmented sentences, emerged from the static like ghosts from a tomb. I started to jot them down, scribbling furiously on scraps of paper, trying to make sense of the cryptic messages. Waiting, one whisper hissed. Another, barely audible, seemed to say, "The signal fading." Then there were phrases that were even more unsettling. "They are watching, don't look back." And, "The void calls." The words were chilling, unsettling, and utterly perplexing. They felt less like a message and more like a warning, a premonition of something terrible. I tried to find patterns, to connect the fragments, to build a coherent narrative from the scraps of sound. But the more I listened, the more confused I became. The whispers seemed to shift and change, sometimes overlapping, sometimes contradicting each other, leaving me in a state of bewilderment and growing dread. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. The whispers haunted my dreams, transforming the familiar comfort of my bed into a breeding ground for nightmares. The line between reality and the phantasmagoric world of the radio blurred, leaving me teetering on the precipice of sanity. The cryptic messages weren't just words. They were insidious tendrils, wrapping themselves around my mind slowly, relentlessly, pulling me into their enigmatic abyss. The more I understood, the more I feared what I didn't. The radio became my obsession, my sole focus. Days melted into nights, blurred by the relentless hum of the static and the chilling whispers that emanated from its aged speaker. Food became an afterthought. Sleep a distant memory. My apartment, once a haven of comfortable routine, transformed into a haunted chamber, echoing with the spectral voices that filled my waking hours and tormented my sleep. The world outside faded, replaced by the increasingly urgent demands of the radio's cryptic transmissions. I was losing myself, drifting further and further into the vortex of the whispers, becoming a prisoner of my own insatiable curiosity. My reflection in the mirror was a stranger. Gaunt, eyes hollowed, haunted by a darkness that seemed to emanate from within. My thoughts, once orderly and rational, now tumbled chaotically, a jumbled mess of fragmented sentences and half-formed ideas, mirroring the chaotic nature of the radio transmissions themselves. Paranoia began to creep in, insidious and relentless. I started to suspect that the whispers weren't just coming from the radio. They were everywhere, woven into the fabric of my reality. The rustling of leaves outside my window sounded like whispers, the ticking of the clock a rhythmic countdown to some unknown event. Even the silence seemed to hum with a malevolent energy, a palpable sense of being watched, of being judged. The line between sanity and madness was becoming increasingly blurred, a thin veil separating me from the abyss that the radio seemed to represent. I was consumed, possessed, by the need to understand, to unravel the mystery, even if it meant sacrificing my sanity in the process. The whispers were no longer just sounds. They were a siren's call, luring me towards an inescapable doom. Then, the whispers started to shift. They stopped being cryptic pronouncements and began to weave a disturbing narrative about my own town, Oak Haven. A place I'd always considered quiet, unremarkable, suddenly felt sinister, shrouded in a veil of unspoken secrets. The whispers spoke of hidden scandals, long-forgotten tragedies, and unexplained disappearances that had been swept under the rug by generations of residents. Names I recognized, names of families who lived just down the street, names of people I'd gone to school with, were uttered in hushed, fearful tones. The whispers spoke of a dark history, a legacy of sin and suffering hidden beneath the placid surface of our seemingly idyllic town. Local legends, stories I'd dismissed as childhood fables, were now presented as chilling realities. The old mill on the edge of town, where I used to play as a child, was described as a place of unspeakable horrors. The whispering woods, where I'd often taken solitary walks, were revealed as a nexus of paranormal activity, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. The more I listened, the more Oak Haven seemed to transform into a character in a gothic horror novel. Each familiar landmark, each friendly face, became imbued with a dark and unsettling aura. The whispers were not just revealing secrets. They were twisting the very fabric of my reality, forcing me to confront a truth far more terrifying than anything I could have ever imagined. My hometown, once a source of comfort and familiarity, had become a source of dread, a place teeming with hidden evils, a place where the line between the mundane and the macabre was increasingly difficult to discern. The whispers were a key, unlocking a dreadful truth about the place I called home, a truth that chilled me to the bone. The whispers intensified, evolving from cryptic hints and veiled warnings into direct commands and blatant threats. The subtle suggestions morphed into forceful directives, the ominous undertones escalating into chilling pronouncements of impending doom. The sense of unease morphed into a palpable sense of immediate danger, a feeling that something terrible was about to happen, something that I was powerless to prevent. "Leave Oak Haven!" A voice hissed, sharp and menacing, cutting through the static like a knife. Another voice, deeper, raspier, added, "They are watching you." The whispers were no longer just words. They were commands, instructions, and threats that seemed to burrow deep into my subconscious, taking root and spreading like a malignant disease. Sleep became a terrifying prospect, a descent into a nightmare landscape populated by the spectral figures that haunted the radio waves. My days were a blur of paranoia, each shadow a potential threat, each unfamiliar sound a foreboding omen. I felt as if I were being stalked, pursued by an unseen entity whose malevolent presence permeated every aspect of my life. The whispers had become an insidious force, working their way into my thoughts, dictating my actions, subtly manipulating my every move. My own mind seemed to be betraying me. A battleground between my desperate desire for normalcy and the relentless onslaught of the malevolent voices from the radio. I was trapped, caught in a web of fear and uncertainty, with the growing dread that the threats weren't merely idle pronouncements but harbingers of a fate I couldn't escape. The chilling commands echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of my impending doom. It started subtly, a fleeting moment of disorientation, a gap in my memory. One morning, I woke to find a page filled with frantic scribbles, symbols I didn't recognize, words I didn't remember writing. They seemed to be some kind of ritualistic incantation, a disturbingly detailed description of a place I'd never been, a ceremony I'd never witnessed. The chilling script felt alien, yet strangely familiar, like a forgotten dream I couldn't quite grasp. Then there were the objects. A small, intricately carved wooden figure appeared on my desk, cold and smooth to the touch, its origins unknown. I didn't remember buying it, didn't remember seeing it before. It felt wrong, unsettling. Like a piece of a puzzle I didn't understand, a piece that didn't belong in my reality. These incidents began to multiply. I'd find myself in unfamiliar places, with no recollection of how I got there. The gaps in my memory grew longer, more frequent, more disturbing. The fear became all-consuming that I was losing control, losing myself, becoming a puppet on strings pulled by an unseen force. My own actions seemed to betray me, my own body acting against my will. The whispers weren't just influencing my thoughts. They were controlling my actions, manipulating my every move, making me an unwitting participant in something far more sinister than I could possibly comprehend. The missing time was terrifying, not just for the lost memories but for the horrifying implications of what I might have done during those blanks, during those stolen moments of my life. The thought chilled me to the core, leaving me with a profound sense of dread and an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. Then came the shadows. At first, they were just fleeting glimpses, indistinct forms at the edge of my vision, a flicker of movement in the periphery, a subtle shift in the darkness. My mind tried to rationalize them, to dismiss them as tricks of the light, as figments of my overactive imagination. But the shadows persisted, becoming more frequent, more defined, more menacing. They were everywhere, lurking in the corners of my room, slithering across the walls, dancing just beyond my sight. Sometimes, I caught a glimpse of something more substantial, a fleeting image of a tall, gaunt figure, its features obscured by darkness, its presence radiating an aura of chilling malevolence. These weren't ordinary shadows. They were sentient entities, malevolent presences that seemed to feed on my fear, my growing sense of dread. My apartment, once a sanctuary, had become a prison, a haunted space filled with unseen watchers. I felt their eyes on me, constantly, relentlessly, their gaze piercing the darkness, their presence suffocating me. The paranoia intensified, consuming me entirely, blurring the line between what was real and what was imagined. Sleep offered no respite. My dreams were invaded by these shadowy figures, their silent menace pursuing me through a labyrinth of twisted corridors and suffocating darkness. Even during the day, I felt their presence, a constant, chilling reminder that I was not alone, that I was being watched, hunted, by forces beyond my comprehension. The shadows were a constant, terrifying reminder of the unseen horrors that surrounded me. The whispers had poisoned my mind, twisting my perceptions, turning my trust into suspicion, my familiarity into fear. I began to see malice in the smiles of my neighbors, a knowing glint in their eyes that suggested they were all part of it, part of some grand conspiracy, some hidden pact with the forces that haunted Oakhaven. My friends, my family, even the people I had known my entire life, now seemed like strangers, their faces distorted by my paranoia, their words laced with a hidden meaning I couldn't decipher. Every casual conversation felt like a coded message, every innocent gesture a veiled threat. The warmth of community had vanished, replaced by an oppressive atmosphere of distrust and suspicion. I felt utterly isolated, alone in a town that had once been my home, surrounded by people who seemed to be complicit in my torment, their silence a deafening confirmation of my deepest fears. Oakhaven itself seemed to be turning against me, its familiar streets now twisting and turning in a labyrinth of shadows and secrets. The houses, once comforting in their familiarity, now seemed to leer at me, their windows like vacant eyes staring into my soul. The town's placid facade, once a source of comfort, had crumbled, revealing a darker, more sinister underbelly. A history of secrets and lies that extended far beyond the whispers from the radio. The fear wasn't just about the shadowy figures and the missing time. It was about the realization that the entire town, my entire world, might be a part of something far more insidious, far more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. The paranoia was complete, a suffocating blanket of dread that left me completely alone, utterly vulnerable. The radio.it wasn't just a source of whispers, a conduit for malevolent messages. It was a gateway. A portal through which something was seeping into my world, something ancient and malevolent. The static wasn't just noise. It was the ragged breath of something beyond human comprehension, something that was slowly, insidiously, consuming me. The whispers weren't just words. They were keys, unlocking doors to a reality far darker and more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. Each crackling sound, each burst of static, felt like a physical invasion, a breach in the fabric of reality. The radio wasn't just broadcasting. It was summoning, drawing something closer, something that was already reaching out to me, manipulating me, controlling me. The shadows, the missing time, the paranoia, it all stemmed from the radio, from this malevolent presence that had found a way into my life, into my home, into my very being. I started to see the radio not as an object, but as an entity, a living thing, pulsating with a dark energy, feeding on my fear. My desperation.it was a parasite, attaching itself to my mind, my body, draining my will, my strength, my sanity. The more I listened, the more I felt its influence, its control, its power. And the more I tried to understand it, the more I feared what I might uncover, the more I dreaded the full extent of its power, the terrifying truth behind its malevolent whispers. The radio was no longer just a machine. It was a malevolent force, an open door to a realm of unimaginable horror.it happened again. Another blank. Another chasm in the fabric of my existence. I woke up disoriented, my head swimming, my body aching, in a place I didn't recognize. The room was unfamiliar, the air thick with a strange, cloying scent. My clothes were different, my hair unkempt. The last thing I remembered was nothing. A void. A terrifying emptiness where my memories should have been. Panic clawed at my throat. I looked around, desperately searching for clues, for anything that could help me piece together the missing hours, the stolen moments of my life. On a small table, next to a flickering candle, sat a worn leather-bound book, its pages filled with strange symbols, a language I didn't understand, yet somehow felt intrinsically connected to. The script was similar to the symbols I'd found before, the ones I'd inexplicably scrawled on that page weeks ago. A chilling realization washed over me. These weren't random occurrences. They were deliberate acts, calculated manipulations of my reality. Someone, or something, was playing with me, toying with my mind, erasing my memories, replacing them with fragments of a narrative I didn't understand, a story I didn't want to be a part of. The fear was no longer a whisper. It was a deafening roar, a terrifying confirmation that I was completely at the mercy of forces beyond my comprehension, forces that were erasing my life, one stolen moment at a time. The book remained, a silent testament to my fragmented existence, a chilling reminder of my lost time, and the terrifying truth that I was losing myself, piece by piece. The whispers changed. They were no longer cryptic, no longer veiled in ambiguity. They were direct, visceral, filled with a hatred so raw, so intense, it felt like a physical blow. The radio crackled and spat, spewing forth a torrent of hateful pronouncements, chilling imagery that clawed at my sanity, painting grotesque pictures in my mind's eye. I heard descriptions of unspeakable acts, of tortures too horrific to comprehend, of a violence so profound it threatened to shatter my very being. The voices were no longer disembodied whispers. They were snarling, guttural pronouncements, filled with a rage that seemed to emanate from some primordial darkness. They spoke of blood and bone, of suffering and despair, of a world consumed by an unending nightmare. The words were sharp, piercing my consciousness like shards of glass, leaving me trembling, breathless, paralyzed by fear. The idyllic facade of Oak Haven crumbled further, replaced by a landscape of horror, a vision of a town consumed by darkness, its inhabitants twisted into grotesque parodies of humanity. My own reflection in the mirror became a stranger, my eyes hollow, my face gaunt, a testament to the relentless assault on my senses. Sleep offered no respite, only a continuation of the torment. A descent into a waking nightmare filled with the echoing screams of the damned, the hateful pronouncements of the unseen, the relentless pursuit of the shadows. The violence wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling, a physical presence, a terrifying premonition of what was to come. My own home, once a sanctuary, a refuge from the outside world, had become a source of constant unease. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle in the shadows, sent a jolt of fear through me. The familiar comfort of my surroundings had vanished, replaced by a pervasive sense of dread, a feeling that I was being watched, that something unseen was lurking just beyond my perception. My belongings, once cherished possessions, now seemed alien, tainted, imbued with a sinister energy. A simple photograph of my family, once a source of comfort, now seemed to leer at me, its faces distorted, their eyes filled with a malevolent knowing. The very air in my apartment felt different, heavy, oppressive, as if it were saturated with a malevolent presence. I found myself scrutinizing every object, every detail, searching for signs of intrusion, for evidence of the entity's influence. Each shadow seemed to writhe and shift, taking on malevolent forms. Each inanimate object felt like it pulsed with a dark energy. The mundane had become monstrous, the familiar, terrifying. My own reflection became the enemy, a stranger looking back at me from the depths of a distorted mirror. The intimacy of my own home, once a source of comfort and security, transformed into a prison, a cage where the unseen horrors of the radio's influence stalked me relentlessly, a constant threat in the very sanctuary that should offer peace. Even the silence was terrifying, a pregnant pause before the next malevolent whisper. I had to stop it. I had to silence the whispers, break the connection, sever the malevolent link between that cursed radio and my shattered mind. I tried everything. I smashed it with a hammer, the wood splintering, the metal bending. But the infernal thing still crackled with malevolent energy, the whispers continuing their relentless assault on my sanity. I tried fire, the flames licking at the warped casing, the smoke filling the room, but the radio remained defiant, its infernal whispers growing stronger, more insistent. I submerged it in water, hoping to drown out the voices, to silence the malevolent emanations, but it emerged from the depths, dripping and sputtering, its whispers even more chilling, more menacing. The more I tried to destroy it, the more resistant it seemed to become, as if fueled by my desperate attempts to silence it. It was as if the radio itself was alive, a malevolent entity defying my efforts, mocking my desperation. Each failed attempt only served to strengthen its hold on me, to deepen the insidious connection, to amplify the whispers that clawed at my sanity. My efforts were not just futile, they seemed to feed the thing, empowering it, strengthening its hold on my mind, my body, my very soul. It was relentless, unyielding, a terrifying testament to the power of the darkness that had invaded my life, a darkness that seemed impervious to my desperate attempts to destroy it. The radio was more than just a machine. It was a sentient thing, mocking my futile attempts to silence it. Then it happened. The whispers ceased. The cacophony of voices faded, leaving behind an unnerving silence, a pregnant pause before the storm. And then, a single voice, clear as a bell, filled the room, resonating deep within my very being. It was a voice both ancient and terrifying, a voice that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of reality itself. It spoke my name, a chilling utterance that sent shivers down my spine, a confirmation of my worst fears. It knew me, understood me, and it was not friendly. The voice was smooth, seductive, yet laced with an undercurrent of malevolence. A subtle hint of something ancient and sinister lurking beneath the surface. It spoke of things I couldn't comprehend, things that defied logic and reason, things that shattered the very foundation of my sanity. It promised power, knowledge, a transcendence beyond human comprehension. But the price was chilling, a terrifying exchange that would cost me everything. It spoke of a merging, a fusion of wills, a surrender of my identity, a complete annihilation of my very being. The voice was a siren's call, alluring yet terrifying, a promise of power intertwined with the threat of utter annihilation. It was a voice that spoke not to my ears, but directly to my soul, a voice that bypassed my conscious mind, reaching the deepest recesses of my subconscious. It was a voice that promised oblivion, but I found myself strangely drawn to its chilling allure. The entity had finally revealed itself, and its voice was a chilling harbinger of my imminent doom. For a fleeting moment, a sliver of a second, the veil thinned. A glimpse. A sensation more than a sight. It wasn't a visual image, not in the traditional sense, but a feeling, a presence, an overwhelming sense of cosmic dread that pressed down on me, crushing me beneath its weight. It felt like the universe itself was collapsing inward, imploding upon itself. All matter and energy converging into a single point of infinite horror. I felt a coldness, not the physical chill of winter, but a coldness that emanated from the very core of existence, a coldness that seeped into my bones, freezing my blood, turning my insides to ice. It was accompanied by a pressure, an immense, crushing weight that bore down on my chest, stealing my breath, suffocating me. And then, a smell, a stench that transcended all earthly odors, a nauseating blend of decay, sulfur, and something indescribably ancient and evil. It was the smell of death, of cosmic horror, a reek that permeated my very being, a scent that would forever be etched into my memory. The glimpse was gone as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of dread, the haunting aroma, the crushing weight, and the bone-chilling coldness. The image itself remains elusive, a fractured memory, a terrifying fragment of a reality beyond human comprehension. But the feeling, the overwhelming sense of cosmic horror, remains. A constant reminder of the terrifying entity that lurks just beyond the veil, waiting for its chance to consume me entirely. The brief glimpse left me paralyzed by fear, a terror that transcended the physical, a dread that settled deep within the marrow of my bones. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the core, that whatever it was far more powerful than anything I could imagine. The voice, once a chilling whisper, now boomed, resonating not just in my ears but in the very marrow of my bones. It was a final message, a summation of its intentions, a chilling prophecy of what was to come. The words were cryptic, veiled in metaphor and allegory, yet their meaning pierced through my fear, chilling me to the core. The veil is thin, it declared, its voice a symphony of dread. And the boundaries are blurring. Soon the realms will merge, and the old ways will return. Resistance is futile. Embrace the change, or be consumed by it. The implication hung heavy in the air, a suffocating cloud of impending doom. Was it a warning? A promise? A threat? I couldn't tell. The words were laced with a chilling ambiguity, leaving me paralyzed with fear and uncertainty. It spoke of a coming transformation, a merging of realities, a cosmic shift that would alter the very fabric of existence. It hinted at an ancient power, a force beyond human comprehension, a malevolent entity that had been waiting for this moment, for this convergence of worlds. The message ended abruptly, leaving me suspended in a state of terrified anticipation, a chilling silence hanging heavy in the air, broken only by the frantic beating of my own heart. The finality of the message, its chilling ambiguity, left me utterly alone with my fear, the weight of the unknown crushing me. The entity's final words echoed in the silence, a terrifying promise of things to come. And I was left with nothing but dread and the chilling certainty that the worst was yet to come. The fear, once a gnawing anxiety, now consumed me entirely. It wasn't just fear. It was a total collapse of my being, a shattering of my sanity. The whispers, the voice, the glimpses, they had torn me apart, leaving behind only fragments of a broken mind. I huddled in the corner, a shivering wreck, my body racked with sobs, my mind a chaotic whirlwind of terror and despair. Logic had abandoned me. Reason had fled. I was left with only raw, primal fear, a suffocating blanket of dread that smothered me, crushing me beneath its weight. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows danced mockingly, and every creak and groan of the house amplified my terror. My thoughts were fragmented, disjointed, a jumbled mess of paranoia and self-doubt. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making, a horrific landscape of fear and despair. Sleep offered no escape, only a descent into deeper layers of terror. A relentless cycle of nightmares that mirrored the horrors of my waking hours. The line between reality and delusion blurred, and I was lost, adrift in a sea of madness, with no hope of rescue, no solace, no escape. The entity had won.it had broken me, and in the depths of my despair, I understood its chilling victory. My mind, once a fortress of reason, was now a shattered ruin, a testament to the overwhelming power of cosmic horror. The darkness had consumed me, and I was left with only the cold, chilling embrace of despair. Perhaps this is it. The end, not a fight. Not a struggle, but a surrender. A strange calm settled over me, a perverse peace in the face of utter annihilation. The terror still lingers, a gnawing presence at the edge of my awareness, but it's dulled, muted, almost acceptable. Is this madness? Or is it something else? A twisted form of acceptance? A resignation to fate? The entity's power is overwhelming, its influence absolute. Resistance is futile. A pointless struggle against an unstoppable force. Maybe there's a perverse comfort in this surrender. A release from the burden of fear, the constant gnawing anxiety. The whispers continue, of course, a constant drone in the background of my existence. But now, they don't sting. They don't pierce my soul. They are merely background noise. The chilling pronouncements of doom no longer send shivers down my spine. They are simply words. Empty words. Or are they? A part of me still clings to a shred of hope. A flicker of defiance. But it's weak, fading fast, consumed by the encroaching darkness. It's as if a part of me, a dark, hidden part, welcomes this oblivion. Is this the price of knowledge? Of power? Or is it simply the final, chilling consequence of my obsession? I don't know anymore. I can only wait. Wait for the inevitable. Wait for the merging of realms. Wait for the end. And perhaps, a part of me is looking forward to it. The ultimate surrender. The terror hasn't vanished, not entirely. It still lurks in the shadows, a constant, chilling presence. But it's different. Now. It's quieter. Less insistent. A dull ache instead of a searing pain. A strange calm has settled over me, a deceptive peace that feels almost unnatural. It's not the calm of resolution or acceptance. It's something else entirely. Something unsettling, something wrong. It's the calm before the storm, the eerie quiet before the final, devastating blow. The whispers persist, of course, but they've lost their edge. Their menace. They're a background hum now, a constant drone that barely registers in my consciousness. The world around me seems muted. Colors are less vibrant, sounds less sharp. Everything is filtered, softened, as if viewed through a veil of mist. It's a world drained of its vitality, its energy, its very essence. And yet, strangely, this muted reality feels peaceful. A perverse peace, a chilling tranquility born from despair. This calm is unsettling. It's not a relief. Not a respite. It's a prelude. A chilling foreshadowing of what's to come. It's the calm before the ultimate storm. The quiet before the final, deafening roar. And in this unsettling stillness, I feel a growing sense of dread, a premonition of something far worse than the terror that preceded it. A terrifying anticipation of the final act, the ultimate curtain call. This strange calm is far more terrifying than the fear. Silence. Not the comforting silence of peace, but the chilling silence of a predator that has withdrawn, leaving its prey in a state of uncertain dread. The radio, that infernal machine, that conduit of cosmic horror, is silent. The whispers have ceased. The booming voice, the chilling pronouncements, the insidious murmurs, all gone, vanished, and in the absence of the torment, a new kind of terror takes hold. It's the terror of the unknown, the fear of what comes next. The entity is not gone. It has merely retreated, perhaps, or perhaps it has achieved its goal. Has it consumed me? Has it broken me completely? leaving me a hollow shell, devoid of resistance. The silence is heavy. Suffocating. It presses down on me, weighing me down, crushing me beneath its weight. It's a silence filled with an unspoken threat, a silent promise of something far worse to come. Is this the calm before the final storm? The quiet before the ultimate annihilation? I reach out to touch the radio. The cold plastic, a stark contrast to the burning fear in my heart. It's cold, inert, lifeless. Or is it? The silence is deceptive, a mask hiding something far more sinister. Is it waiting? Is it gathering its strength? Or has it simply moved on, leaving me to my fate? The uncertainty is unbearable. The silence is a torment far worse than the whispers ever were. It's a silence that screams of impending doom, a silence that echoes with the chilling certainty of an inevitable, horrific end. And in this unnerving quiet, I am left alone with my fear, utterly alone in the face of the unknown, the chilling silence, a far more terrifying prospect than any voice. Even now, with the radio silent, the feeling persists, a constant, nagging unease that clings to me like a shroud. It's not the sharp, piercing terror of the whispers, but a dull, persistent ache. A low hum of dread that vibrates in my bones. It's the feeling of being watched, of being observed by something unseen, something malevolent. The shadows seem deeper, darker now, even in the brightest light. They shift and writhe at the periphery of my vision, playing tricks on my eyes, teasing me with glimpses of something just beyond my perception. Are they real? Or are they merely manifestations of my own fractured mind? I can't tell anymore. The line between reality and delusion has blurred beyond recognition. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside my window, sends a jolt of fear through me. My senses are hyperalert, straining to detect any sign of the unseen presence that continues to haunt me. Am I alone? Or am I surrounded by unseen entities, their presence a constant, chilling weight upon my soul? The silence of the radio offers no solace. It only amplifies the feeling of isolation, the sense of being trapped in a world where I am no longer in control. The whispers may be gone, but their legacy remains. A lingering dread, a persistent feeling of being watched, a terrifying awareness that something is still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting, and I am left alone to confront this ever-present dread, the chilling reality that the darkness is always watching. What was it? What was the entity that spoke through the radio? A demon? A god? Something else? Something beyond human comprehension? I don't know, and perhaps I never will. The answers remain elusive, shrouded in a mist of fear and uncertainty. Was it truly a merging of realms? Or was it simply a manifestation of my own fracturing mind? The line between reality and delusion has become hopelessly blurred. The memories are fragmented, unreliable, haunted by the whispers and the shadows. Can I even trust my own perceptions anymore? What happened in Oak Haven? What dark secrets lie buried beneath the town's idyllic facade? The whispers hinted at something terrible, something ancient and malevolent. But the truth remains hidden, locked away in the recesses of a shattered mind. Why me? Why was I chosen, or perhaps cursed, to receive these transmissions? Was it my obsession? My insatiable curiosity? Or was it something far more sinister, something predetermined, something inevitable? The questions linger, unanswered, unanswerable. They are a constant, gnawing presence, a torment far worse than the whispers themselves. They are the legacy of the radio, the enduring mark of the cosmic horror that has irrevocably altered my perception of reality. And in the silence that follows, in the absence of answers, I am left with only fear, an overwhelming sense of dread, and the unshakable certainty that some mysteries are best left undisturbed, some doors are better left unopened, some truths are better left unknown, and some silences speak volumes. It remains a mystery. The entity, the voice, the thing that spoke through the radio, its nature remains frustratingly, terrifyingly ambiguous. Was it extra-dimensional? Interdimensional? Something older than time itself? Or was it something far more mundane, a product of my own fractured mind, a manifestation of my deepest fears and anxieties? The whispers, the booming pronouncements, the chilling prophecies, they offer no concrete answers, only more questions, more layers of unsettling mystery. The visions, the fleeting glimpses beyond reality, offer no clarity, only a deeper sense of dread, a chilling awareness of the vast, incomprehensible unknown. The symbols, the cryptic messages. They hinted at a grand design, a cosmic conspiracy of unimaginable scale. But the meaning eludes me, lost in the swirling vortex of my own paranoia. Was there a plan, a purpose? Or was it simply random chaos, a malevolent force with no discernible motive? Perhaps it was nothing more than a twisted game, a cruel joke played on a vulnerable mind. Or perhaps it was something far more sinister, something far more ancient and powerful, something that exists beyond human understanding. The truth, if there even is a truth, remains elusive, a tantalizing mystery that will forever haunt my waking thoughts and my nightmares. The ambiguity is the most terrifying aspect. The unknown is far more frightening than any concrete evil. The entity remains a nameless, faceless horror, a chilling void that continues to consume me, even in the silence of the aftermath. And that, perhaps, is its greatest power, the power of unanswered questions, the chilling uncertainty of the unknown. Is this real? The question hangs in the air, unanswered, a chilling echo in the silence. The world around me seems different. The colors are muted, the sounds distorted, as if viewed through a warped lens. Or perhaps, it's me that's warped. My perception, my very reality, seems to be shifting, morphing, dissolving. The familiar streets of my town feel alien, hostile. The faces of the people I pass are wrong, not physically wrong, but off. Their expressions are subtly distorted, their eyes holding a disturbing emptiness. Are they aware of something I'm not? Or am I simply hallucinating? I can't tell. My memories are fractured, unreliable. Moments slip through my fingers like grains of sand, leaving behind only fragments. Echoes of experiences I can't fully grasp. Is this a deliberate manipulation? A subtle alteration of my perception? Or is this simply the result of a mind collapsing under the weight of unimaginable terror? The line between reality and illusion has vanished. The world has become a canvas painted with the brushstrokes of fear and uncertainty. And I, the observer, the victim, am trapped within this distorted reality, unable to distinguish between what is real and what is merely a figment of my increasingly unstable mind. Is this a new reality? Or the final stage of my descent into madness? The answer remains elusive, lost in the shadows of my own fractured perception. It's not over. The silence is a deceptive calm, a prelude to something far worse. The whispers may be gone, but the feeling persists, a constant, gnawing dread that chills me to the bone. It's in the shadows, in the silence, in the spaces between breaths. It's in the subtle shifts in reality, the ever-present feeling of being watched, of being controlled. I see it now, in the flickering candlelight, in the distorted reflections in the darkened glass. It's in the eyes of the others, the ones who walk among us, their faces subtly altered, their eyes devoid of warmth, their smiles wrong. They know. They've always known, and they're waiting for something, something that will change everything. A merging of realms, a cosmic alignment, the return of something ancient and malevolent. I don't know, but I feel it coming, a creeping dread that coils around my heart, squeezing the life out of me. One agonizing breath at a time. The radio is silent, but the whispers continue. Within me, a chorus of unseen voices, a symphony of impending doom. The world is changing, and I am no longer certain of my place within it. I am lost, adrift in a sea of paranoia and dread, a prisoner in my own mind, surrounded by unseen entities, watching, waiting. And I know, with absolute certainty, that the end is coming. And it will not be merciful. It will not be kind. The air crackles with a silent energy, a subtle hum that vibrates beneath the surface of reality. It's there, I feel it. A presence that clings to the edges of my perception, a cold breath on the back of my neck. Even in the silence, even after the terrifying broadcast ceased, it remains. I look around my room, the familiar objects now imbued with a sinister, alien quality. The shadows seem deeper, more substantial, as if alive, sentient, watching me. The silence is not empty. It's filled with an unspoken threat, a lurking menace that coils around me, unseen, yet ever present. My breath catches in my throat. I hear a faint scratching sound, barely audible, a whisper on the edge of hearing. It comes from the walls, from the floorboards, from the very air itself. It's a sound that speaks of things unseen, of things beyond human comprehension. Is it still here? In the shadows, in the spaces between the atoms, in the silent hum that permeates everything? Is it watching me, waiting, planning? Or is it simply a figment of my fractured mind, a phantom born of fear and paranoia? I don't know. I can't know. But the feeling persists. The chilling certainty that it is still here, lurking unseen, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. And I am left alone, trapped in the suffocating silence, with only my fear as a companion. The unseen presence that it waits. The echoes linger, not the literal echoes of the broadcast, the booming pronouncements and chilling whispers, but the echoes in my mind, the lingering dread that clings to me like a shroud. It's a constant companion now, this fear. This gnawing uncertainty. It whispers in the silence, a constant reminder of the horrors I've witnessed, the things I've heard. Sleep offers no escape. My dreams are haunted by distorted images, fragmented memories, and the chilling presence of that unseen entity. I wake in a cold sweat, heart pounding, the taste of fear bitter on my tongue. The world seems different now, subtly altered, its familiar comfort replaced by a pervasive sense of unease. The mundane tasks of daily life are now fraught with anxiety. Each shadow seems to hold a lurking threat, each creak of the floorboards a potential sign of an unseen presence. The faces of those around me are now suspect, their eyes holding a chilling emptiness, their smiles forced and unnatural. Paranoia is my constant companion. A gnawing worm that feeds on my sanity. I question everything. Doubt everything. Is what I see real? Or is it a manifestation of my own fractured mind? The line between reality and delusion is blurred, a hazy boundary that shifts and morphs with each passing moment. The ambiguity is the most terrifying aspect. The unanswered questions gnaw at me, leaving me trapped in a perpetual state of fear and uncertainty. Was it real? Was it all in my head? The truth remains elusive, lost in the swirling vortex of my own anxieties. And so I remain, forever haunted by the echoes of fear, forever trapped in the chilling aftermath of that paranormal radio transmission, forever wondering, waiting for the next broadcast.